You answered too quickly again. The moment the conversation ended, your chest tightened the same way it always does afterward, and for a few seconds, the room felt strangely quiet around you. Not because anything dramatic happened, because part of you already knew you had ignored yourself again. Chosen one. At first, it seemed small enough to dismiss. You tell yourself it is easier this way, faster, more manageable. Someone asks something from you. You immediately adjust, immediately accommodate, immediately smooth the atmosphere before tension can even appear. Most of the time, nobody notices it happening. That is part of what makes the pattern difficult to recognize. Externally, it can look like kindness, patience, emotional maturity. Internally, something else is happening. Your body feels the pressure before your mind finishes explaining why the reaction was necessary again. The exhaustion appears afterward. The emotional heaviness lingers longer than it used to. Certain conversations stay inside your nervous system long after they end. And slowly, something becomes harder to ignore. The problem was never only what other people expected from you. It was how automatically you abandoned yourself to meet those expectations. The changes usually begin quietly, not through one dramatic realization, not through a sudden collapse. More often, it starts through hesitation. You notice yourself pausing before agreeing to things that once felt automatic. A message stays open longer than usual. Someone asks for your time, and instead of responding immediately, something inside you tightens first. That reaction feels unfamiliar in the beginning. You were used to adapting quickly, reading emotional atmospheres quickly, sensing tension before it fully formed and adjusting yourself before anyone else became uncomfortable. For a long time, those behaviors probably felt normal, necessary even. You learned how to maintain emotional stability inside environments where your own feelings became secondary to keeping the situation manageable. And eventually, the adaptation became automatic enough that you stopped noticing the emotional cost while it was happening. That is why awareness feels disruptive at first. The behaviors themselves may not change immediately. You can still overextend yourself, still make yourself emotionally available, still explain things away before anyone questions you. But now you feel yourself doing it while it is happening. The body notices first. Your stomach tightens before answering. Your breathing changes during certain conversations. Exhaustion appears faster around people who constantly require emotional adjustment from you. Nothing external may appear different at all. The conversation still continues. People still interact with you normally. Life still moves forward the same way from the outside. Internally, though, the experience has already changed, because awareness entered the pattern directly. And once that happens, unconscious behavior stops feeling fully invisible. Part of you probably tried to return to the old version of yourself, the easier version, the version that could tolerate emotional discomfort without carrying it afterward. At first, that instinct makes sense. Awareness creates friction before it creates clarity. You start noticing how much energy disappears trying to maintain versions of yourself that no longer feel natural internally. Someone changes their tone slightly, and immediately your nervous system begins calculating how to stabilize the interaction. A room becomes tense, and before anyone says anything, part of you already feels responsible for fixing the atmosphere emotionally. Most of these reactions happen so quickly that they barely feel conscious. That is what makes the pattern difficult to explain to other people. Nothing obvious may even be happening externally. Still, your body reacts. You leave certain interactions emotionally drained even though no argument occurred. You replay conversations afterward because something inside you felt misaligned while they were happening. Relief appears when plans get canceled that you originally agreed to automatically. At first, those moments seem disconnected. Eventually, the pattern begins organizing itself. You realize how much of your emotional life has revolved around preventing discomfort before it could fully arrive. Preventing rejection, preventing tension, preventing disappointment, preventing emotional distance. And slowly, another realization appears underneath that one. Many of those behaviors were never truly about other people alone. They became ways to maintain emotional safety inside yourself. That is why the awareness stage feels emotionally exhausting. You are not simply changing current behavior. You are becoming conscious of survival patterns that shaped entire versions of your identity over time. The old reactions still exist. The automatic responses still appear. But now something inside you hesitates before fully cooperating with them. Quietly, consistently, that hesitation becomes impossible to unfeel after a while. This is the stage where many people begin confusing awareness with emotional instability. Because once unconscious adaptation becomes visible, ordinary interactions can suddenly feel heavier than they used to. Not because you became weaker, because your nervous system no longer allows you to move through certain patterns without noticing the emotional cost attached to them. You begin recognizing how quickly your energy changes around people who require constant emotional management. Certain conversations leave you disconnected from yourself afterward, even when they seem harmless on the surface. And the strange part is that externally, life may still appear completely functional. You still show up, still work, still respond, still participate, but internally, the relationship between awareness and behavior keeps tightening. That creates pressure. Not dramatic pressure, not explosive pressure, quieter kind, the kind that follows you home afterward. You feel it sitting in silence after another interaction where you agreed too quickly again. You feel it while staring at a message you do not fully want to answer. You feel it during conversations where your body reacts before your words do. The awareness itself becomes difficult to override. That changes the experience completely. Before, you could abandon your own emotional reality automatically and continue functioning without fully recognizing what it cost you internally. Now the nervous system records everything. The pressure in your chest before saying yes, the exhaustion afterward, the emotional distance between what you expressed externally and what you actually felt internally. Awareness sharpens all of it. And because many of these patterns were socially rewarded for years, this stage often becomes deeply isolating. People may still see you as patient, reliable, easy to talk to, emotionally available. Meanwhile, internally, something has already stopped feeling sustainable. You begin noticing how many relationships unconsciously depended on your ability to self-abandon quietly. That realization changes the emotional atmosphere around almost everything. Some environments start feeling heavier before you even enter them. Certain names appearing on your phone immediately shift your nervous system. Your body starts reacting faster than your explanations can keep up. At first, this can feel confusing. Part of you still believes you should be able to tolerate things the old way. But another part already understands something important. The old version of you survived by disconnecting from internal signals quickly. Awareness interrupts that process. And once the interruption becomes consistent enough, the emotional cost of unconscious adaptation becomes harder to tolerate than the discomfort of change itself. That is the real pressure most people feel during transformation. Not life becoming impossible, self-abandonment becoming impossible to ignore. The difficult part about this stage is that awareness does not immediately give you new behaviors. At first, it only removes invisibility. That means you may still participate in patterns that no longer feel aligned while simultaneously feeling the emotional impact more clearly than ever before. Someone asks something from you. Your body tightens immediately. Part of you already knows the response you actually want to give. Still, the old reaction appears first. You adjust automatically, accommodate automatically, protect the atmosphere automatically. And afterward, the exhaustion feels heavier because awareness stayed present while it happened. That internal split creates enormous tension, especially for people who spent years measuring their worth through emotional usefulness. You begin noticing how deeply certain identities were built around being needed, being emotionally available, being easy to access, being adaptable enough to keep everyone else comfortable. When those identities begin weakening, the nervous system often interprets the change as danger initially. That is why many people start reaching for distraction during this phase. Noise, overstimulation, busyness, constant emotional engagement, anything that prevents prolonged stillness, because stillness reveals the pattern more clearly. You notice how tired you feel before some interactions even begin. You notice how quickly your emotional energy drains around people who expect unlimited access to you. You notice relief appearing when obligations disappear unexpectedly. Those reactions matter, not because they mean you should isolate from everyone, not because every difficult interaction is toxic, but because your nervous system is beginning to distinguish between connection and chronic self-abandonment. That distinction changes everything gradually. You stop forcing enthusiasm as quickly. You stop volunteering emotional labor automatically. You stop overriding discomfort simply because someone else expects immediate access to your energy. Externally, these shifts can appear subtle. Internally, they reorganize your entire relationship with yourself. And during this stage, grief often appears alongside clarity, because awareness forces you to recognize how long certain adaptations shaped your behavior without your full consent. You realize how often your body signaled exhaustion before your mind allowed you to acknowledge it. How many times tension appeared before agreement. How often emotional heaviness followed interactions you convinced yourself were normal. That realization hurts sometimes, not because you failed, because you finally see how much pressure your nervous system carried trying to protect you quietly for years. Slowly, something begins stabilizing. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough that the relationship between awareness and behavior starts becoming more aligned. The hesitation no longer feels confusing. It starts feeling informative. You respond slower now, not from fear, from discernment. Someone asks something from you, and instead of automatically adjusting yourself emotionally, you actually listen to your internal reaction first. That alone changes your entire experience of life. Conversations become cleaner. Decisions feel steadier. Your energy stops feeling as emotionally scattered afterward. Not because tension disappears completely, because you stop abandoning yourself automatically every time tension appears. And that changes your nervous system more than most people realize. Certain relationships begin reorganizing naturally during this stage. Some people become uncomfortable when they can no longer access the old version of you as easily. Some dynamics weaken once you stop carrying all the emotional weight alone. Some conversations become shorter. Some silences become more honest. At first, that shift can feel lonely, especially when your identity was built around emotional accessibility for a long time. But another feeling begins appearing underneath the loneliness eventually. Relief, a quieter kind of relief. The kind that appears when your external behavior finally starts respecting what your internal awareness has been trying to show you consistently. You trust your body faster now. The tension in your chest matters. The exhaustion afterward matters. The hesitation before agreeing matters. Instead of arguing with those signals immediately, you allow them to inform your choices. That changes the emotional texture of your life gradually. Not through dramatic breakthroughs, through smaller moments. You stop answering immediately. You stop forcing emotional closeness where your body already feels resistance. You stop explaining yourself endlessly just to prevent discomfort in other people. And over time, something unexpected happens. The heaviness begins losing some of its confusion, not because life becomes effortless, because the pressure finally starts making sense. You realize the nervous system was never trying to sabotage you. It was trying to interrupt patterns that required you to disconnect from yourself repeatedly in order to survive emotionally. Once you understand that, awareness stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling protective. Eventually, the pause becomes part of how you move through life naturally. You no longer react instantly simply because tension appears in the room. You no longer force yourself into emotional alignment with every environment around you. And perhaps most importantly, you no longer override your awareness the moment discomfort appears internally. That changes your presence in ways other people can feel immediately. Your responses become steadier. Your energy becomes less emotionally scattered. Conversations stop pulling you away from yourself as easily. Some people interpret that shift as distance, but internally it feels different than distance. It feels like self-trust. You begin recognizing emotional pressure earlier now. The body tightens before agreement. Fatigue appears before overcommitment. Certain environments reveal themselves quickly through your nervous system reactions. And instead of abandoning those signals automatically, you stay conscious inside them. That is the real transformation. Not becoming emotionally invulnerable. Not removing discomfort completely. Remaining connected to yourself while discomfort exists. For a long time, survival may have depended on disconnecting from your internal reality quickly enough to maintain external stability. Now, awareness interrupts that process, consistently, quietly, and because of that, the old identity stops feeling fully believable anymore. Not through force, not through dramatic rebellion, through repeated moments of conscious recognition. One pause at a time, one delayed response at a time, one honest internal reaction at a time. That gradual reorganization changes the way you move through life permanently. The exhaustion was never only about other people. It came from how often you had to disconnect from yourself in order to maintain emotional stability around them. That is why certain interactions feel different now. The nervous system notices what the old identity learned to ignore automatically. The pressure in your chest before answering, the emotional heaviness afterward, the hesitation before agreeing, the silence that follows certain conversations. None of it appeared randomly. Awareness was trying to interrupt unconscious self-abandonment before it became permanent. At first, that interruption feels uncomfortable, because the old behaviors still exist while your relationship to them is already changing internally. But eventually, something becomes clear. The goal was never becoming emotionally cold, never isolating yourself from people, never avoiding discomfort completely. The real shift was learning how to remain connected to yourself while discomfort exists. That changes everything quietly. The room may still look the same. The conversation may still continue normally. Life externally may not appear dramatically different at all. But internally, something fundamental has already reorganized. You can feel yourself now while the pattern is happening. And once awareness becomes consistent enough inside the moment itself, the old version of you stops feeling completely automatic anymore. That is why this season feels so strange sometimes. Part of you still remembers how you used to move through life. Another part already knows you cannot disappear inside those patterns the same way anymore. This is obsidian within, forged in the shadows, destined for more.